Less than a year after the overturn of Roe v. Wade, competing rulings on an abortion pill splitting the U.S. of A. Once again, even further, some would say. Who should have a final say? And is it really just about abortions? Let's take a closer look and pick it up from there.
The Battle of the Pill, the latest chapter in the U.S. war surrounding reproductive rights. Matthew Kaczmarek, a federal judge in Texas, has suspended the Food and Drug Administration's approval of mifepristone, a pill used for around half of abortions in the US. The drug has been used since 2000, but a lawsuit was filed last November by a Christian legal advocacy group who said that the FDA exceeded its regulatory authority when it approved mifepristone, something which the FDA denies, stating the numerous and vigorous trials it has done. The ruling is not immediate, as the government is allowed time to appeal, which the Department of Justice says it will. And within an hour of the news report, a Washington judge filed a counter-ruling, preserving the use of the drug in 17 states. This will likely go to the Supreme Court, which overruled the landmark Roe v. Wade case last year, removing constitutional privileges for abortion rights. Does this mean that step by step, reproductive rights are getting dismantled in the US? And is that a good thing? Was this ruling done because of genuine danger to women's health, or was it done for political reasons? Should mifepristone be banned in the US?
So let's get to it. Should the pill be banned in the U.S.? As always, ladies, we begin with a quick fire round, 30 seconds each to let your initial stance on the matter, and we'll pick it up from there. So, Emmy O'Donnell, please take the lead. Your 30 seconds are on.
Thank you. A 2009 peer-reviewed study from Finland published by the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology found chemical abortions have a 20% complication rate and a 4-time greater complication rate than surgical abortions. The federal judge found that the FDA violated federal law in several ways when it approved mifepristone for elective abortion in 2000. He wrote, "One thing is clear, the lack of restrictions resulted in many deaths and many more severe or life-threatening adverse reactions. Due to the FDA's lax reporting requirements, the exact number is not ascertainable. For these reasons, we believe the distribution should be banned."
Okay, and we will, of course, continue to expand on that in a split second. Kristal Knight, your thoughts?
I think that mifepristone should not be banned because it has already been shown that it is effective. It's not only used for women who are experiencing abortion, but it's also used for alternative measures for people who have other medical challenges. And as the guest just stated, people who purport this right to life, they cannot quantifiably name how many deaths have occurred because there are little to none. And so I stand by women who want the choice to decide whether they want to have a baby or not.
Last but definitely not least, Professor Noya Rimalt, your take?
So there is only one answer to this question. Of course, no. More than 100 scientific studies from all over the world that were performed in different countries and in different times. All these studies examined the effectiveness and the safety of this abortion pill, and the conclusion was unanimous. This is a very, very safe medication, and all women of all ages should have access to this safe abortion pill.
And on that note, dear panelists, let's feel free to interact from this point onwards. And I do want to begin with you, Amy O'Donnell. If public health is the main concern here, is banning the pill going to simply boost less safe, less monitored procedures, abortion black market, if you will?
Is banning the chemical abortion drug regimen going to increase sales on the black market? Is that what you're asking, just to make sure I'm following your question?
This is part of it, and generally speaking, is banning more regulated mechanisms going to boost less safe options for those who choose to undergo it anyways?
I think it's important to note that the judge found that the FDA violated federal law in several ways when it approved the drugs. And then they backed that up by saying, we don't need to accurately track the data in the United States. Then they used that lack of data to then say that they are safe and then approvable to be mailed to women in the United States. That's a problem for women's health and well-being. If a woman has an ectopic pregnancy, if she's Rh negative, or if she's further along gestationally than 7 weeks to 10 weeks, the complication rate goes up exponentially. And we know that doctors are treating women in emergency rooms who are coming in with complications. We know that oftentimes women who do go in lie and say that they did not take it, that they're miscarrying. There is no credible data in the United States. There are false studies on bad data. There are decisions that are being made on no data. And the study that I mentioned from Finland actually followed abortions done in hospitals. That data is credible, so credible that an American obstetrics journal published it in the United States.
Professor Rimalt.
So I must say that I'm deeply shocked, because when it comes to women's health, and actually to all people's health, scientific facts should be the only thing that we should care about. There is no doubt that the FDA performed numerous checks before they approved this drug, and over the years they undertook rigorous reviews over and over again to make sure that this is the safest way for women to end a pregnancy in the early stages. And I just can't believe what anti-abortion groups say. They're actually relying on religious belief and misconceptions about the true facts of abortion to support what is basically a religious belief and not a scientific fact. I have tremendous respect for all religious belief, but a person, a woman or a man, should not use their religious belief to enforce their views of others in a way that endanger the life and health of other women.
So, Kristal Knight, are we talking women's health here, or a politically motivated ban?
I think it's both. We're talking about women's right to choose and have bodily autonomy with their person. With whatever they decide to do with their body, they should have the choice. We should always have the choice. But this has also become a politically polarizing issue across this country. We see groups on both sides. Clearly, I'm on the pro-choice side, but just as your other panelist is on the pro-life side, we are at an inflection point where people feel strong about both sides. And so you have this judge in Texas, and we have to question, why was this particular case brought in the state of Texas, brought before this particular judge? Because it would not stand up in any other court across this country. And so that's what people who, have this discussion on the right say, is that it has to go to a particular judge in a particular state. And the other thing that I wanted to state that's always lost in this conversation, people who say that they care about right to life, they only care about it when the baby is born. After the baby is born, these same groups, they're nowhere to be found. They don't care about...
Absolutely not true.
So when has your group helped a woman in need after she's had a baby?
We partner with many pregnancy centers, hundreds of pregnancy centers across the state, who provide hands-on support for women. I myself am on a board of an organization, and what we recognize is it takes all of us doing our part. We are the legislative advocacy, education, outreach arm. We work hand in hand with maternity homes, adoption agencies, and pregnancy centers. We meet with them regularly once a month. We have meetings with them on an ongoing basis. We provide funding from some of our fundraisers to help them take care of children for up to 3 years after birth. And that is not just for the first child, that's for subsequent children after that, as well as women who miscarry and lose their babies. These organizations also provide support there. We support them. They provide that support, as does our legislature. So we also have board members here of our organization who've adopted children. So that's just a baseless lie. And I make no apologies as a pro-lifer working for a statewide pro-life organization that my focus is protecting life in the legislature. And I make no apologies that while I partner with other organizations, I recognize that's their mission. It takes all of us doing our part.
Yes, Kristal, please.
She didn't answer the question directly. I asked her about definitive support. I asked her what support looks like, and I
Financial
asked her about
support,
her organization. Hold on,
diaper
I'm talking.
drive.
I'm still talking. I asked about
I
your
did answer
support.
your question.
I asked about your organization only, and you began by saying we
I
partner
did
with
answer your question.
X, Y, and Z, but you did not name definitively. You
We
also
provide
stated
diapers,
that
we provide
that you
funding,
help
we support
with
leaders
three
who support the
million
women.
children who are
Takes
born
all
in
of
this
us doing our
country
part.
wanted have problems throughout their lifespan, and so helping a mother for 3 years
We
isn't
support
enough.
funding for
Partnering
healthcare.
with
We support the legislature expanding that. I'm happy to go into what we do there, but I did answer your question. So we'll just lay that down
So
and
again,
move forward.
You're just pro-birth.
You may not like my answer, but I did answer your question.
No,
You just
and
don't
obviously,
want to see that we actually
different
help women,
different
because it fits your
organizations have
but it's
different
not based in fact.
objectives. Yes, I do want to circle back to one point Kristal made earlier in our conversation. This judge shopping notion, if you will. We're seeing those again conflicting rulings. Are interested groups on both sides going to engage in just that, or let me put it that way, are courts being politically weaponized at this time and age? Amy?
Am I worried about our courts being weaponized in this time and age?
Yes, because again, you see one ruling in Texas, the other one in Washington State, competing rulings here. Are advocacy groups going to, again, engage in judge shopping? I think that's a good term.
Absolutely not. We have to trust that the people who are appointed to the courts are there to do one thing, to look at the cases that come before them and decide on merit. And so, is this my 30 seconds in?
No. This is just the 1 minute timer to the end
you're
of our
just
first.
timing. Okay, got it.
Thank you for
we
being
have to
so
trust that
attentive.
We have to trust that judges are going to look at cases on their merit and make decisions as they've been placed on the bench to, on a case-by-case basis, not moved by political outside forces and outside rhetoric. And we saw the justices in Dobbs stick to their guns despite all of the firestorm that came out after that leak. And we just have to trust that they're going to look at each case on its merit and not let partisan politics play into it.
Okay, we obviously have so much more to unpack, but we do need to take a very short break now. So hold your thoughts right there. We will be right back. Professor Noya Rimalt, Kristal Knight, and Amy O'Donnell, you're staying with us a few minutes, and we're back with part 2 of our summit. Do not go anywhere. Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. Still with us on our panel, Amy O'Donnell, Kristal Knight, and Dr. Noya Rimalt. Thank you so very much, ladies, for staying with us. We're also, of course, staying on topic, and the White House already vowing to chime in. Let's take a quick listen to what Vice President Kamala Harris to say.
There is no question that the President and I are going to stand with the women of America and do everything we can to ensure that women have the ability to make decisions about their health care, their reproductive health care, in a manner that is what they need, and they decide that, not their government. I'll also say about this case as a general matter that it is contrary to what makes for good public health policy to allow courts and politicians to tell the FDA what it should do. This is a drug that the FDA approved as safe 20 years ago and has been proven to be safe for 20 years. So this is a dangerous precedent.
So let's get to it. Another quick fire round, 30 seconds each. Should there be a blanket decision over these issues, or should every individual state make a decision of its own? Kristal Knight, please take the lead.
I think if the FDA has already approved this drug, then it should be a blanket statement. And I also want to just say that during the break, the Justice Department, it was just announced, has disagreed with the Texas judge. And so that ruling will not go forward right now, as it is based upon the Justice Department disagreeing with the Texas judge's ruling.
Thank you very much for this important update, a timely topic, that's for certain. Professor Noya Rimalt, what do you think?
So I think that in a normal society, of course, there should be one general federal standard that applies for all women, and this standard should be based on scientific facts and should be designed to protect the health and life of all women. In a normal society, individual states should not be given the authority to enable a bunch of fanatic people to decide for themselves what is right for women's health. This is unheard of. So in theory, a broad standard for all, but in practice, if this standard is going to be determined by the judiciary, so I have my doubts whether some judges are up to this decision.
Amy O'Donnell, last but not least, your thoughts?
Thank you. When Roe v. Wade was overturned, the power to legislate abortion returned to the people and to their elected representatives, state by state and nationally. However, this case moving through our federal court system, and it's no surprise that it's going to be appealed. We fully expected that. In fact, the judge gave 7 days. It lies outside of that Supreme Court Dobbs statement that it returns to the people and their elected representatives because it pertains to the FDA, who violated federal law in approving those chemical abortion drugs for distribution in the U.S. Therefore, it should be a blanket decision to address the FDA's negligence in fast-tracking the mifepristone regimen illegally.
And in this respect, then let's feel free, of course, to engage, to interact from this point onwards. Dr. Rimalt, is questioning the FDA reviewing process a slippery slope or a legitimate prerogative, something that is needed? Some would even say long overdue.
The way it is done right now, it's very dangerous, of course. The FDA has not violated federal regulation. This is nonsense. And I wonder if some people think if they repeat some false statements over and over again, this doesn't make these things true. This abortion pill has been approved 23 years ago. I cannot even remember the number of reviews. It has been endorsed by medical officials all over the world. I just heard a couple of minutes ago that 250 executives from different drug companies endorsed the Justice Department in its effort to undermine this court decision. So, I mean, where are we? The FDA is a very responsible federal agency. It should have the authority to make careful decisions about our health. And I think it's very dangerous for everyone when a court, because of political reasons, is undermining the authority of the FDA, questioning the very careful decision-making process. And this, of course, could have consequences in other areas of law and could impact our health in other, with regard to other medications.
Yeah, Amy, you're listening to Dr. Rimalt here. Would revoking the approval of this medicine, of this pill, have effects beyond abortion? And also specifically to our topic, should justices be able to remove an approval of a drug that has been legal for over 2 decades now, 23 years in the use?
It's important to note that the judge looked at the facts presented in the case. I encourage you guys to actually go and read the briefs. This is not a judge making a decision based on speculative information. It's factual information that was provable, and therefore the judge decided as he did. And that being said, it's regarding mifepristone as only pertains to chemical abortion. It's not regarding these drugs as they pertain to any other treatment. It's that they were not properly vetted for use for chemical abortions in the United States by law, by what they were supposed to follow to approve them. And then they did not prioritize tracking data for complications in the United States. This should be a red flag to all of us. If the FDA has fast-tracked this medication without proper vetting, that is a concern for our women. That is a concern for our minor girls who have the ability to get these drugs in some states that can seriously harm their health or cost them their life. That's what we should be focused on. To argue in any other way is to argue against the health and well-being of women based on false facts that no matter how much you want to say they're true, they're not. FDA did not approve this correctly. So that's where we are. If that, then what? What does that mean for women? Where do we go from here? They should never have been approved. They were not properly approved. And sending them via mail violates the Comstock Act. So we have a couple of violations here that are on the table, and we'll see. We hope the Fifth Circuit upholds it, and should it go to the Supreme Court, they as well.
Kristal, I do want to circle back to the question, is it a slippery slope? Would revoking the approval of this bill have effect beyond abortion?
It absolutely could. I mean, there's no precedent set for this. And so if you begin to go back in law 23 years and say, oh, you didn't do this right, you did not properly approve something that has been the law of the land for 23 years, what's to stop any other group that is advocating for or against a particular drug to go back and look at case law and figure out a grab and reach approach, which is what, the right is attempting to do. This is just a grab and reach approach. We're going to find something and bring this forward. And let me be clear about this. Had Roe versus Wade not fallen last year, I don't think that we would even see this case. But I think, this is just that energized many of the people who, again, purport to say that they are pro-life when really they're just pro-birth. So again, this is not something that I think the federal government wants to venture into, because this will open up the door for many other drug use or drugs that have been approved by the FDA to be challenged in a court of law.
Yeah, it's a very fine line here. On the one hand, we all want to question long-standing notions, to keep our intellect and our minds very much alive, and at the same time not to question it too much. A delicate line here indeed. And on that note, Amy O'Donnell, Kristal Knight, and Professor Noya Rimalt, I would like to thank you very much for your time and insight. We appreciate it very much, and obviously see you back on the show sooner rather than later.